Hi, Genderqueerchat. It's Callie here. It's Saturday, and the topic this week is educating others. Um, do you find yourself being the token genderqueer person in a group and having to explain gender to people on a regular basis? And how do you handle it? And does it ever get tiring? So, to dive right in, I would say I'm often the only genderqueer person in a group of people, very often, most of the time, but I don't know if I would say I was the token genderqueer person, because that implies that that there's some kind of expectation that there would be a genderqueer person around, when actually a lot of people I know probably don't know about the term genderqueer, and if they do, it's because I have explained it to them. I don't make it a mission to educate everybody who I know. I tend to deal with these things as and when they come up. I definitely don't do it often enough. I definitely need to be better at educating people, at kind of talking to people. It's just I don't like to derail a whole conversation by, if someone refers to me and says, "Oh well, you're a man, so you think this," or "I'd like a man's opinion on this," to which my answer is usually, "Well, you should go and find one then." But I don't like to derail a whole conversation by talking about that stuff like that. And people are not, like, people don't tend to, maybe it's just people I associate with, or maybe it's a cultural thing, a British thing, but people don't tend to call me out on stuff like that. Like casually kind of disavowing the idea that I'm a man. People tend to just let the conversation go on, maybe think it would be awkward to talk about it, but I often don't find it very easy to just kind of slip it in there. And even when it's just me and one other person, people tend not to bring it up. And maybe I should talk about it more, but as I say, I'm reluctant to derail an entire conversation just to talk about my gender identification. But when people directly ask me about it, I will explain, or try and explain, whether or not I use the word genderqueer, because it can raise a whole kind of issue about kind of terminology and stuff. But it's weird. I am not very good at talking about it, because even people I know who are kind of down with differing gender identities, and who are themselves queer, I don't always spend a lot of time talking about my gender identification. And maybe I should a bit more. There was one occasion last semester when I gave a talk to the Feminist Society at my university, of which I am a member, and I gave a talk, and the title of my talk was "Effeminacy and Feminism," and how what Julia Serrano in her book Whipping Girl calls effemimania, this kind of societal obsession with male femininity in a way that is not obsessed with female masculinity. I mean, society does have problems dealing with female masculinity, but that's a whole other issue. The kind of peculiar kind of fascination and horror that society has for male femininity that Julia Serrano calls effemimania, and which she talks about in her book Whipping Girl. So I gave this talk, and the text for the talk was 10 pages from Whipping Girl, and it was like a discussion. So I opened the discussion by giving a kind of précis of Serrano on this issue from the whole book, referring to the thing I had talked about. And and also to another essay of hers, which is on the Gay Utopia, which is a really cool website, which you can find at the gayutopia.blogspot.com. An essay of hers called Performance Piece, which is about the performativity of gender, the whole idea of performativity of gender, and how it's often misconstrued. And that essay has been reprinted in, or printed, I don't know if it was for the first time or what, but that essay has been printed in the excellent new book, Gender Outlaws Next Generation, edited by S. Bear Bergman and Kate Bornstein, which I just got this week, and it is superb. So if you like S. Bear Bergman, if you like Kate Bornstein, if you like books about gender and gender queerness and gender fuckery, then I strongly advise you to read it. Anyway, sorry, tangent, because this was the talk I gave, which was about Julia Serrano, Whipping Girl, performance piece, what, for want of a better word, we will call male femininity, or feminine gender expression in male-bodied people. But the discussion, which was to follow my short talk, was pretty much about, I mean, there was a lot, like, people were like asking me questions about my personal gender identity and what I thought the answers to these questions were. So that was really interesting, but that doesn't really happen to me very much. And I wouldn't want to be like constantly educating people on these things, because I would say that it gets tiring, and I don't do it enough for it to tire me, but just kind of being visibly queer is often tiring, because, you know, especially in the middle of my town where I live, there is a high school, and there are often teenagers from this high school who will make comments about my appearance, which obviously shows you're doing something right, but it can be a little wearing if you have to, because I have to walk past this high school most days, and I don't want to like time it so that I don't walk past there at lunchtime or break time, so the kids aren't there, because then what would that achieve? But I would just be kind of giving in. But I do sometimes change my route, and that's tiring, having to kind of position myself so I won't be around people who call me names. And so the explaining is like a whole nother step from that, and I don't like arguing with people. Be nice, why can't we all just get along, eh? Okay, so I don't know how much sense that made, because I did that in quite a torrent stream of consciousness, but I was working at the bookshop where I work this morning, and as I was doing my mindless drone labour of shelving books and dusting shelves, I was sort of contemplating this topic. So I hope that made some sort of intelligible sense. And yeah, I had a nice time in Germany last week, which conforms to every stereotype I had about Germany, which is that it's very efficient and very clean. And yeah, I loved it. German people speak fantastic English, which is great because I don't speak any German. And I felt a little bit guilty being the kind of cultural imperialist, colonialist, walking around speaking my dominant language. I did give the German a go, but I think if they pretended to understand me, they were just being kind. So, in sum, see you next week.